In this tutorial we will be rigging a very simple set of legs. This workshop is designed to give you the basic principles of rigging. What we're going to do is divide the body up into sections, legs, arms and torso, rig them separately, do a bit of animation on each, and then combine them together to create a very awesome final character rig at the end of the workshops. Now, the first problem that we find is that this geometry is not very clean. So if we go to Window and select our outliner, you can see that we've got tons of groups and poly surfaces that have no real connection to the geometry. If, however, your scene is already clean, then you can skip this step. You don't need to do it. So what we're going to do is select all our geometry, go Mesh, Combine, and then we're going to Control D, press Control D to duplicate, hit Polysurface 5 and Shift select all the way up to Group 1 and press Delete. And what that does is gives us a nice clean bit of geometry in the center of the scene. Now, to make sure that it is in the center, we're going to go Modify, Freeze Transformations, so that there is no scales, rotates or transforms on it. And then we're going to go Edit, Delete All by Type, History, so that cleans out the connections, and then Modify, Center Pivot. So that is our default position for the character. Some of you may prefer to move it up so it is sitting on top of the grid. However, that is not necessary for this tutorial. Now, we want our geometry to be separate from our rig whilst we're building it, so that we don't get any sort of movements or any rotations on it. So what we're going to do is put it into its own layer. So the first thing I want you to do is click Show or Hide the channel box, select the legs and go Layers, Create Layer from Selected. So that's the first thing to do. Now, if you ever close this down and need to find it again, simply go Window, Outliner. Now, selecting the legs, we've got it in a separate layer, and what we want to do is template the layer so that we can't touch it, but it still remains visible. So simply click in that box to template the layer. Now, this can get confusing with the grid, so let's just simply switch off the grid. So go Show, and then Grid. And we now have our legs nicely separated out, and we can't do anything to mess them up. So we're now going to move on to rigging. The first thing I want to do is I want to explain to you about joints. You can watch this part or you can do it with me. That doesn't matter. This is just sort of explanations. So the first thing to do is just to click a series of joints in our scene. As you can see, what joints are like decimal points connected together by a single chain. So if I was to move the knee, you can see that all the joints beneath this knee joint move at the same time. So we can now simulate sort of a kicking or walking motion. However, there's a problem with that because all the joints are automatically created in the center of the scene and have to be moved to match up our geometry. Also, the problem is the joints are not all facing the same way, so that is a bit of a difficulty. So if I was to move this joint and then try and move this joint, you can see the blue arrow is completely different, and it will, rip our model to pieces, rip our rig to pieces as well. So we need to sort that out. So the first thing to do is just to get rid of those joints. We've got our templated layer. Now what we're going to do is double click on the joint tool here. And we want our degrees of freedom to be in X, Y, and Z. That is fine. However, because we're going to manually orient our joints later on, let's for now just click on None. So that way, at least we know they're going to be facing the same way. So having done that, what I want you to do is go into your side view, click on your hip joint to create a joint there. Let's do that. Then I want you to click on your knee, and then I want you to click on your ankle, the ball of the foot and the toe, and press Enter. Those are your first set of joints. Now jump to your front view and let's manipulate them. So let's move them over to this side, move the knee, and then let's move our feet. So let's just move that knee back a little way. There we go. So that looks a lot better. That's actually quite nice. Now, what we're going to do is we need to name the joints. Maya is a very good program, but it needs a lot of help, and to help it we need to clearly name where all these joints are so that it can accurately process which bit of our animation is moving. So holding down Shift button click on the plus sign to get in the outliner to get all our joints. Double click on joint 1 and let's name it. So this is going to be our right leg. So right underscore hip JNT. Now when you're naming joints, the most important thing is to tell Maya that it is a joint and which side it is. The bit in the middle really doesn't matter too much. So for now I'm just going to name it right underscore knee JNT. Then we're going to double click right underscore ankle JNT. Let's just have a look at this. That's the ball of the foot, so it'll be right underscore ball JNT. And then again right underscore toe JNT. So we have named our joints. Now what we're going to do is we're also going to create a new set of joints called a reverse footlock, and what that does is it ties down this part of the foot so that we get more accurate heel motion. So what we're going to do is create a new set of joints. So what I want you to do is I want you to create a joint here, where in between the ankle and heel. I then want you to create a joint, create a joint down here, right at the bottom of the foot. Then I want you to create a joint here, a joint here, and then a joint here. And that is our reverse footlock. So now what we need to do again is to name those joints. So this is the right reverse footlock, right RFL, and let's name that heel JNT. Then we need to name this one right underscore toe JNT. Then this one is the ball, right RFL, ball JNT. Okay, so I just need to put RFL in there so it does not get confused. And then right RFL ankle JNT. So now we've got our joints named. Now we've spent quite a lot of time, quite tediously naming joints, but what it's going to do is it's going to make things a lot easier later on. So what we need to do is snap the reverse footlock to the foot. So what you're going to do is hold down V, select the red arrow, and bang, that automatically sticks to these joints here. So the first thing we need to do now is we need to mirror our joints. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go skeleton. Make sure that we're on our animation menu set. Go to skeleton, and then we need to mirror joints. Now, I'm just going to reset my settings. Now, XY is the wrong axis because that's going sort of upwards. We want Y and Z axis. That's the most important axis, and we want to search for the word right and replace with left. So Maya is an awesome program because when I select this joint and then click apply on the mirroring joint, it just copies the joint onto the other side. But even better, it renames it for me in the outliner to left. So I don't have to spend hours, redoing each joint. And again, do the same thing for the reverse footlock. So we've got all of that done. Now, the next part is to connect these joints together. So what we're going to do is, having done that, we are going to create a new joint, and we are going to create it round about where our butt is going to be, which is here, and then we're going to create one in the center of the hip. So now, so it's just those two joints. And what we're going to do is, in the outliner, we're going to name this joint as the root JNT, and then we're going to name the one in the middle as hip. Actually no, pelvis would be better. Pelvis JNT, because we already have a hip at the top. So we've got that done. Now all we need to do is connect these joints together. The best way to do that